Hello, dear friends. Tonight's story is a calm classic mystery, the kind that begins softly and ends with a shocking truth. So settle in, relax, and let the night carry you into a world of secrets and where one small detail changes everything. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The House That Refused to Sleep. The first thing you noticed about Briarwick House was its silence, not the ordinary silence of a large home after midnight, not the silence that comes from distance and carpet and heavy curtains. This silence was intentional. It felt arranged, curated, maintained, as though the house had learned over many years that quiet could hide more than it revealed. Outside, the lane was empty, no carriage wheels, no footsteps, only the gentle hush of a winter breeze moving through hedges and bare branches. Inside, the lamps glowed low and warm, turning polished wood into honey and making every corner feel safe. At least that's what the lamps were meant to do, but lamplight can be a liar. In the drawing room, a fire still lived, though it had begun to soften, embers glowing like the last thoughts before sleep. The wallpaper was old, floral, slightly faded, and the portraits above the mantelpiece watched with a patient sternness that made even confident people feel like children. At the heart of the room sat a radio, a vintage set with a cloth speaker panel and a dial that glowed faintly amber, like a tiny sunrise trapped behind glass. It wasn't playing anything now, it was simply on, humming, a quiet electrical breath, the kind of sound you didn't notice until it stopped, and then you realized you had been listening all along. A clock ticked somewhere nearby, steady and gentle, as if insisting the night still belonged to time rather than to fear. On a tea tray sat 2 cups, both half-finished. The tea had cooled. A small plate of biscuits remained untouched, not because people weren't hungry, but because hunger had been replaced by something else: worry. Across from the tea tray sat Mr. Alistair Rowan, the owner of Briarwick House. He was not old, but he was tired in the way only a wealthy man with a complicated past could be tired. His hair was carefully combed, his dressing gown expensive, his slippers quiet against the rug. He had the look of a man who controlled rooms with polite authority, yet tonight his hands kept drifting toward his throat, as though checking that something essential was still there. Beside him, arranged like part of the furniture, sat Mrs. Vivian Rowan. She was elegant in a way that never felt accidental. Her posture was perfect, her hair pinned precisely, her face calm and smooth. She wore pearls even now, at nearly 1 in the morning, because some people wore pearls the way others wore armor. Vivian did not look tired. She did not look frightened. She looked prepared. Near the window stood Dr. Bernard Hale, a physician with kind eyes and an exhausted expression. His coat was draped over a chair. His sleeves were rolled slightly, as though he had been expecting to stay longer than planned. By the bookshelf, pacing slowly as if the room were a ship deck in stormy weather, was Captain Miles Everhart, retired Navy, broad shoulders, hands that belonged to ropes and commands, and a temper that did not enjoy waiting. Seated on a settee, hands folded tightly in her lap, sat Miss Celia Pruitt, the household secretary. She was young, careful, and pale. Her eyes kept darting toward the corridor, as if she expected the house itself to move. On the far side of the room sat Mr. Silas Dent, a solicitor, thin and precise, his briefcase close to his legs. He looked like a man who had spent his life organizing other people's mistakes into legal language. And slightly apart from the group, quiet, neat, composed, sat the detective. Not a policeman, not a uniform, a private mind who appeared wherever ordinary explanations collapsed. His name was Etienne Marceau. He sat with his cane resting against his knee, not because he required it, but because it gave his hands something to do besides reveal what his eyes already knew. Marceau observed the room the way a radio listener hears a play, not only with ears, with attention. He noticed the faint indentation on the carpet near the radio table, as though something heavy had been moved recently. He noticed a small scratch on the radio's wooden casing, fresh, bright against the darker varnish. He noticed that one teacup had a ring stain beneath it, while the other did not, meaning one cup had been set down repeatedly, the other only once. And he noticed, most of all, the rhythm of the room. Everyone was acting as if they were waiting for something. Captain Everhart broke the silence first, his voice too loud against the softness of the lamps. "This is absurd!" he snapped. Alistair, the hour is obscene. If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, open your doors and let us leave. Alistair, Rowan's eyes flicked up. I will open the doors, he said quietly, when the matter is settled. Everhard barked a laugh. Settled? You've trapped us here like school children. Vivian Rowan's lips curved faintly. Captain, you do enjoy drama. Everhard glared at her. I enjoy freedom. Dr. Hale spoke softly, attempting to soothe. Miles, please. There's no need for shouting. Everhard's eyes narrowed. Doctor, I'm not shouting at you. Then stop shouting at the house, Dr. Hale replied, calm but firm. It was an odd sentence, but it hit, because everyone in the room understood in some quiet way that Briarwick House had become its own character tonight. Miss Celia Pruitt finally spoke, voice trembling. Mr. Rowan, why did you ask Mr. Marceau to come? Alistair's gaze drifted toward Marceau. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. Because, he said, someone here has stolen something from me. Silence fell again. Silas Dent tightened his grip on the briefcase. Vivian's expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Everhard scoffed. Stolen? At this hour? Alistair swallowed. My documents, he said. Private ones. Vivian spoke lightly. Alistair, you misplace papers constantly. Alistair's jaw tightened. Not these, he said. The fire popped softly, the radio hummed, the clock ticked, and Marceau felt the story begin to reveal itself the way it always does. Not with a loud confession, with a small word. Alistair leaned forward and said it. My will. That word landed like a stone, dropped into still water. Celia's breath caught, Dent's face drained slightly. Vivian's eyes flickered, not fear, not shock, recognition. Everhard muttered, Oh! Dr. Hale watched Alistair carefully, because in a house like this, a will was not paper. It was power. Alistair's voice was hoarse now. I changed it, he said. Vivian's head tilted barely. You did? What? She asked, tone smooth. I changed my will, Alistair repeated, 2 days ago. Silence again. Dent's lips parted as if to speak, then closed. Celia whispered, Why? Alistair's gaze moved from face to face. Because, he said quietly, I learned something. Vivian smiled faintly. That you've been dramatic too long. Alistair ignored her. I learned, he continued, that someone close to me has been lying. Captain Everhart's footsteps stopped. Dr. Hale's eyes narrowed slightly. Dent looked down at his briefcase, as though it was suddenly heavier. Celia whispered, About what? Alistair's voice dropped. About a death, he said. The room tightened. Marceau's eyes sharpened. A death. Of course, wills don't change for petty reasons. They change when guilt becomes too loud to ignore. Vivian's smile faded. Alistair, she said softly, don't do this. He looked at her then, truly looked, and the look was not loving. It was wounded. You told me, Alistair said, voice trembling, that my brother's fall was an accident. Vivian didn't blink. Because it was, she replied. Dr. Hale's posture stiffened. Captain Everhart's jaw clenched. Celia's hands tightened around each other. Dent whispered, Mr. Rowan? Alistair continued, voice cracking. But now I know it wasn't. The room went dead quiet. Even the radio's hum seemed louder. Marceau spoke for the first time, voice calm, almost gentle. Mr. Rowan, he said, you believe your brother was killed. Alistair's eyes fixed on him. Yes, he whispered. I believe it. Marceau nodded slowly. And you believe, Marceau continued, that someone in this room knows the truth. Alistair's voice was barely audible. Yes. Vivian rose then, graceful and cold. This is madness, she said. You're turning grief into theatre. Marceau watched her closely. Her hands were steady, her voice controlled. People who are innocent often sound upset. People who are powerful sound certain. Captain Everhart snapped. Sit down, Vivian. She turned her head slowly. Captain, she said softly, don't speak to me as if I belong to you. Everhart stiffened. Dr. Hale's eyes sharpened. Marceau's mind filed it away. There is history between them. Alistair pointed toward Dent. You witnessed the will, he said. Didn't you? Dent swallowed. Yes, he admitted quietly. I did. Vivian's gaze flashed to Dent. You traitor, she whispered. Dent's voice shook. Madam, it's legal work. Vivian's smile returned slightly. Legal work? She looked at Alistair. You've invited us here to threaten us, she said. Alistair's voice broke. No, he whispered. I invited you here because someone is trying to destroy me. Captain Everhard laughed bitterly. Someone? Alistair, you always think there's someone. Marceau's eyes moved to the clock. It read 1:11 a.m. 2 minutes. Marceau didn't know why those 2 minutes mattered yet. But he felt the night tightening toward a point. Alistair looked at Marceau, pleading. Tell me, he said quietly. Have you worked it out? Marceau's gaze moved slowly across the room. Vivian, calm, prepared. Everhard, angry, defensive. Dent, precise, sweating. Dr. Hale, steady, concerned. Celia, terrified, watching the corridor. Then Marceau said softly, I have worked out something. Alistair leaned forward. What? He whispered. Marceau's voice remained gentle. That your will is not the only thing missing tonight. Silence. Dr. Hale frowned. What else is missing? Marceau didn't answer immediately. He listened, because the house had its own language. The clock ticked, the radio hummed, the fire whispered, and beneath it all, almost too faint to notice, a soft click from the corridor. Celia's head snapped toward the door. Her face turned white. Did you hear that? She whispered. Everhard barked. Hear what? Marceau stood, not quickly, not dramatically. He simply rose like someone honoring a quiet ritual. The clock shifted. 1:12 a.m. Marceau's eyes moved to the radio. The amber dial glowed. The hum deepened slightly, as if the machine were about to speak. Alistair whispered, What is happening? Marceau answered calmly. At 1:13 a.m., he said softly, something will announce itself. Vivian's eyes narrowed. What exactly? She asked. Marceau looked toward the corridor door, and then he said, in a tone so quiet it felt like truth rather than accusation, a sound that shouldn't exist unless someone planned it. The room held its breath. The clock ticked toward the next minute like a slow heartbeat, and at exactly 1:13 a.m., the radio's hum stopped. For a fraction of a second, silence was absolute. Then the radio spoke. Not music, not news, a voice, a calm voice, slightly distorted by static, but unmistakably human. Good evening, if you are hearing this. The house has refused to sleep. Celia gasped. Alistair's face went grey. Vivian's eyes widened, just briefly. Everhard stepped backward. Dent whispered, No. The radio continued, the voice steady and cold. The will is not missing, it is held, and the truth is not dead, it is waiting. Then, after a pause like a smile, Do not open the front door. The radio clicked, the hum returned, and the room finally remembered how to breathe poorly. Alistair whispered, Who recorded that? Marceau stared at the radio, calm as ever, but his eyes sharper now. He said softly, Someone who knows this house. Dr. Hale swallowed. This is a threat, Marceau nodded. Yes, he replied. And now, he added gently, we understand why Briarwick House refused to sleep. Vivian's voice shook for the first time. Alistair, she whispered, call the police. Captain Everhart snapped. We should leave. Dent whispered, We can't. Celia's eyes stayed on the corridor, trembling. Marceau walked toward the radio table, examined the dial, the casing, the fresh scratch, the indentation in the carpet. Then he looked up and said the sentence that made everyone freeze again. The message says, Do not open the front door. He paused. Which means someone expects you to. The fire popped. The clock ticked. And beyond the curtains, the night pressed closer. Chapter 2. A calm gathering. In the late hours, radio के words अब भी हवा में लटक रहे थे. Do not open the front door. ब्रायरविक हाउस का ड्राइंग रूम, जो कुछ देर पहले तक सिर्फ एक लेट नाइट गैदरिंग लग रहा था, अब एक लॉक्ड स्टेज बन चुका था. एलिस्टर रोवन की आंखों से रंग उतर चुका था. उसने रेडियो को ऐसे देखा जैसे उसने किसी मर्डे को बोलते सुन लिया हो. विवियन रोवन ने अपनी पूरी जिंदगी कंट्रोल में रखी थी, मगर अब पहली दफा उसकी सांस जरा सी हिल गई। कैप्टन एवरहार्ट ने गुस्से में एक स्टेप आगे लिया। ये बकवास है, उसने कहा। रेडियो को बैंड करो। सीलिया प्रूइट की आवाज कांपती थी। सर, ये वॉइस फेमिलियर लग रही है। साइलस डेंट ने अपनी ग्लासेस स्ट्रेट की, जैसे वो खुद को डिफेंड कर रहा हो। रेडियो मैसेजेस प्रैंक भी हो सकते हैं। डॉक्टर बर्नार्ड हेल ने रेडियो को देखा और फिर एलिस्टेयर को। एलिस्टेयर, डॉक्टर हेल ने सॉफ्टली कहा, तुमने किसी एक्सपर्ट को बुलाया था? इलेक्ट्रिशियन, टेक्नीशियन? एलिस्टेयर ने हेड शेक किया। नहीं, उसने कमजोर आवाज में कहा। मैंने सिर्फ मरसो को बुलाया। एटियन मार्सो कामली रेडियो के पास खड़ा था। उसने केसिंग का स्क्रैच देखा, फिर कारपेट की इंडेंटेशन, फिर वॉल के सॉकेट तक नजर गई। हर चीज का अपना सेंटेंस होता है। कैप्टन एवरहार्ट ने मार्सो को घूर के देखा। आप खराए होके देख रहे हैं? कुछ करें? मार्सो ने नर्म आवाज में जवाब दिया, मैं कर ही रहा हूं। उसने रेडियो के पीछे हाथ डाला, बिना जल्दबाजी के, सिर्फ टच, सिर्फ फील। फिर उसने एक छोटी सी चीज निकाली, एक थिन वायर जो नॉर्मल पावर कनेक्शन का पार्ट नहीं लग रहा था। इंटरेस्टिंग, मार्सो ने कहा। विवियन रोवन ने शार्प नजार से देखा। वॉट इज इट? मार्सो ने वायर को लैंप लाइट में उठाकर दिखाया। रेडियो को रिमोट ट्रिगर किया गया है, उसने कहा। यह मैसेज मैन्युअली प्ले नहीं हुआ, इसे किसी ने टाइम सर्किट से चलाया। देंत का चेहरा टाइट हो गया। दैट्स स्पेक्युलेटिव। मर्सो ने देंत को देखा, बिल्कुल काल्म। मिस्टर डेंट, मर्सो ने कहा, स्पेक्युलेशन वो होती है जहां पैटर्न्स ना हो, यहां पैटर्न्स है। सीलिया ने कपकपाती आवाज में पूछा। मैसेज में कहा, विल मिसिंग नहीं, हेल्ड है। किसके पास? एलिस्टर की आंखें बैंड हो गईं। मेरे विल का ड्राफ्ट मेरी स्टडी में लॉक रहता है, विवियन ने तुरंत कहा, और उसकी की तुम्हारे पास होती है। मर्सो ने नरमी से ऐड किया, और किसी और के पास। एलिस्टर ने आंख खोली। किसके? मर्सो ने जवाब नहीं दिया। वो सवाल का जवाब तब देता है जब रूम रेडी हो। कैप्टन एवरहार्ट ने सडनली कॉरिडोर की तरफ देखा। अगर मैसेज कह रहा है डोर मत खोलना, तो कोई चाहता है कि हम खोलें, बट वाई? डॉक्टर हेल ने क्वाइटली कहा, टू ट्रैप अस। साइलेंस। विवियन ने स्लोली टी ट्रे की तरफ देखा, जहां 2 कप्स थे। वी शुड लीव। एवरहार्ट ने तुरंत सपोर्ट की। यस, अभी से पहले कोई और गेम स्टार्ट हो। मर्सो ने काल्मली कहा, आप लीव करना चाहते हैं, बट रेडियो ने स्पेसिफिकली फ्रंट डोर का मेंशन किया। विवियन की आंखों में इरिटेशन। सो? मर्सो ने एक सेकंड का पॉज लिया। सो? उसने कहा, अगर आप फ्रंट डोर खोलते हैं, तो आप प्लान को एक्टिवेट कर देते हैं। डेंट ने फ्राउन किया। प्लान? मार्सो ने रेडियो की तरफ देखा। ओल्ड हाउसेस, मार्सो ने कहा, सिर्फ वॉल्स नहीं होती, वो हैबिट्स होती हैं, रूट्स होते हैं, हिडन मैकेनिज्म्स होते हैं। सीलिया का चेहरा और पहले हो गया। मैकेनिज्म्स? डॉक्टर हेल ने स्लो ब्रेथ ली। मार्सो, आर यू सेइंग दिस डेंजर बिल्ट इनटू द हाउस? मार्सो ने नर्म आवाज में कहा, मैं कह रहा हूं, किसी ने इस हाउस को आज रात एक इंस्ट्रूमेंट बना दिया है। एलिस्टर ने देखते देखते अपनी फिस्ट्स बैंड कर ली। ये सब मेरी ब्रदर की डेथ से रिलेटेड है, उसने स्लोली कहा। विवियन ने कोल्ड वॉइस में कहा, एलिस्टर डोंट। एलिस्टर ने उसकी बात काट दी। नहीं, अब नहीं। ही लुक्ड एट एवरीवन। मेरे भाई जूलियन रोवन 3 साल पहले स्टेयर से गिरा था, एलिस्टर ने कहा। मुझे बोला गया एक्सीडेंट था। डॉक्टर हेल की आंखें नैरो हो गई। जूलियन, एवरहार्ट ने क्वाइटली कहा, वी ऑल रिमेंबर। एलिस्टर की आवाज हैवी हो गई। मैंने रिसेंटली कुछ सुना, कुछ देखा, और मैंने विल चेंज किया। विवियन ने बिटर स्माइल दी। सो यू ड्रैग्ड अस हियर, एलिस्टर ने गुस्से से कहा। मैंने तुम सबको यहां इसलिए रोका क्योंकि किसी ने विल चोरी किया। और अब रेडियो? मर्सो ने सॉफ्टली ऐड किया। रेडियो ने रात को ऑफिशियली केस बना दिया। साइलेंस। देन कॉरिडोर से एक फेंट साउंड आई, नॉट फुटस्टेप्स, अ सॉफ्ट स्लाइडिंग साउंड, जैसे किसी ने वुडन पैनल को आहिस्ता से मूव किया हो। सीलिया का हाथ अपनी लिप्स पे चला गया। वो साउंड। एवरहार्ट ने क्विकली कॉरिडोर डोर की तरफ मूव किया। विवियन ने शार्प वॉइस में कहा, माइल्स, स्टॉप। एवरहार्ट रुक गया। Why we can't just sit? मार्सो ने बिल्कुल calm लेकिन firm voice में कहा, Because the message said do not open the front door. मगर कॉरिडोर डोर का मेंशन नहीं था। एवरहार्ट ने ब्लिंक किया, So we can open corridor door? मार्सो ने सिर्फ इतना कहा, We should not rush. डॉक्टर हिल ने सॉफ्टली कहा, What do we do then? मार्सो ने ड्राइंग रूम के कॉर्नर्स देखे और फिर रेडियो के नीचे वाली टेबल को। हम पहले समझें, मार्सो ने कहा, कि मैसेज का पर्पस क्या था? ही लीन्ड क्लोजर टू रेडियो। आप सबको फियर दिया, मार्सो ने कहा। और फियर का काम होता है लोगों को प्रिडिक्टेबल बनाना। विवियन ने शार्प टोन में कहा, प्रिडिक्टेबल हाउ? मार्सो ने काल्मली जवाब दिया। फियर के बाद लोग या तो भागते हैं या अटैक करते हैं। He looked at Everhart. कैप्टन, आप अटैक करने वाले थे। He looked at Vivian. मैडम, आप एस्केप करना चाहती हैं। He looked at Dent. मिस्टर डेंट, आप लॉ के पीछे छुपना चाहते हैं। He looked at Celia. मिस प्रूइट, आप फ्रीज हो जाती हैं। He paused. जिसने मैसेज रिकॉर्ड किया, उसने आप सबको एग्जैक्टली वही बनाया जो उसे चाहिए। एलिस्टर की आवाज कांपती थी। एंड व्हाट डज ही वांट? मार्सो ने रेडियो की डील पे उंगली रखी। वो चाहता है, मार्सो ने कहा, कि आप फ्रंट डोर खोलें। साइलेंस। एंड एट दैट मोमेंट ब्रायरविक हाउस की बेल नहीं बाजी, मगर फ्रंट पोर्च से एक फेंट थंप आया, जैसे किसी ने बाहर से कुछ प्लेस किया हो। Celia whispered, Oh God, Everhart hissed, Someone's outside. Vivian ने एलिस्टर को देखा। Call police now. Dent ने सडनली कहा, Telephone line might be cut. डॉक्टर हेल ने एलिस्टर की साइड टेबल पे नजर की। टेलीफोन सेट। He lifted receiver. Silence. No dial tone. Hollow emptiness. डॉक्टर हेल ने जॉ टाइट की। Cut. मार्सो ने नरमी से कहा, Of course. एलिस्टर की आईज वाइड। So we're trapped. मार्सो ने slowly reply किया, No. He looked at them all. We are contained. And then he said, Now we decide, do we play their game or do we force them to play ours? Chapter 3. The strange sound at 1:13 a.m. clock ticked to 1:16 a.m. The radio message ने रूम का टेम्परेचर बदल दिया था। Not literal, emotional. एवरहार्ट ने अपनी फिंगर्स फ्लेक्स की। We should check outside. विवियन ने coldly कहा, No, we do not move like frightened mice. एलिस्टर ने गुस्से से कहा, तुम हमेशा कंट्रोल। विवियन snapped. Because without control, Alistair, you become pathetic. डॉक्टर हेल ने दोनों को कट किया। Enough. मार्सो ने कॉरिडोर डोर की तरफ स्टेप लिया। सिर्फ एक स्टेप। वो स्लाइडिंग साउंड, मार्सो ने कहा, रिपीट हुआ तो हम डायरेक्शन लोकेट कर सकते हैं। Celia whispered, Repeat? Marceau nodded. Hidden panels, he said softly, often settle twice. Once when moved, once when gravity returns it slightly. Everhart scoffed. You talk like you've lived in these houses. Marceau replied calmly, I have lived in human nature. Houses are easier. Silence, then again the sliding sound, this time closer. It came from the corridor itself, like wood moving against wood. Celia's breath caught. There! Everhart took 2 quick steps. Marceau raised a hand. Slow! Everhart hissed. If someone's in the corridor. Marceau spoke gently. If someone is in the corridor, they want you to rush. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Then, what do you suggest? Marceau's gaze moved to the fireplace poker. He picked it up, not as weapon theatrics, as tool. Then he walked to the corridor door and opened it a crack, not wide enough to invite anything, just enough to let a thin line of corridor lamp spill into the drawing room. The corridor was empty, silent, carpet runner, framed paintings, a small side table, but on the corridor floor, a thin line of dust had been disturbed. Marceau crouched slightly and traced the dust trail. It led to a point near the side table. On the table lay a folded paper. Celia whispered, Was that there before? Alistair shook. No! Marceau used the poker tip to lift the paper without touching it. He unfolded it carefully. A message, handwritten, neat, almost elegant. The will is safe. The truth is not. If you open the front door, you will lose one of your own. Vivian's face went hard. Threat! Everhart growled. Blackmail! Dent whispered. This is insane! Dr. Hale's voice dropped. This is deliberate. Marceau's eyes moved to the bottom of the note. A small symbol, a circle with a line through it. Vivian's eyes flickered. Recognition again. Marceau noticed. He asked softly, "Madam, you have seen this symbol before." Vivian snapped, "No." Marceau didn't argue. He simply said, "Your eyes did." Alistair stared at Vivian. "What is that?" Vivian's voice was controlled. "Nothing," Everhard muttered. "It's never nothing." Marceau turned the note slightly. "The paper," he said, "is stationary from inside this house." Dent frowned. "How do you know?" Marceau pointed to the watermark, faint crest, Briarwick. "So the threat is from outside," Marceau said, "but written with inside resources." He paused, "meaning someone here is helping." Silence. Celia whispered, "Helping who?" Marceau replied calmly, "Helping the person who wants the door opened." Dr. Hale looked at Marceau. "Why would anyone want that?" Marceau's gaze moved to Alistair. "Because," he said, "the door is not a door." Alistair blinked. "What?" Marceau spoke slowly. "It is a trigger," Everhard snapped. "Trigger for what?" Marceau's eyes moved to the radio again. "For something timed," he said. Then Marceau turned to Dent. "Mr. Dent," he asked softly, "your briefcase. May I see its contents?" Dent stiffened. "Why?" Marceau replied. "Because wills travel in briefcases." Dent's face tightened. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Alistair's voice went sharp. "Show him, Dent." Dent hesitated, then opened it. Inside, papers, not only legal. A smaller envelope, unmarked. Marceau nodded at it. "That," Dent swallowed. "It's private." Marceau's tone stayed gentle. "Everything tonight is private," he said. "And that is the problem." Den slowly handed it over. Marceau opened it. Inside was a single key. Old brass, numbered. 13. Celia whispered, 13. Marceau looked at the clock. He spoke softly. 1:13 a.m. Key 13. Symbol on note. Someone is obsessed with that number. Vivienne's voice cut in, colder than before. "Put that down." Marceau's eyes met hers. "Madam," he said gently, "you just confirmed the key matters." Vivienne's jaw clenched. Alistair stared at her. "Vivienne, what is key 13? Vivienne didn't answer. Everhard snapped, "It's for a hidden room." Dr. Hale whispered, "Or a cabinet." Marceau nodded. "And the will," he said softly, "is probably inside that cabinet." Alistair's face went white. "So it's not stolen, it's moved." Marceau's voice was calm. "Yes." He turned toward the corridor. "And whoever moved it," he said, "did so in the missing minutes before the radio message." Celia whispered, "So someone in this room." Marceau nodded once. "Yes." Then he added, "And the house refused to sleep. Because the house is protecting the secret room." Chapter 4. A guest who shouldn't be here at 1:31 a.m. The house did something cruel. It offered hope. A distant sound came from outside, like a car pulling into the lane. Everhard rushed to the window. "I told you someone's outside!" Vivienne hissed. "Don't you dare open the front door!" Alistair's hands trembled. "If police," Marceau interrupted softly. "It is not police." They all froze. Dr. Hale whispered, "How do you know?" Marceau's eyes stayed on the curtains. "Police arrived loudly," he said. "This arrived carefully." A shadow moved behind the drawn curtains. Someone walking along the porch. Celia's mouth went dry. "Oh, no." Then 3 soft knocks on the front door. Polite, measured, not panic. Everhard's voice dropped. "Now we open it." Vivian snapped. "No," Alistair whispered. "But what if—" The radio hummed softly, then clicked. A new voice came, same distortion, same calm. "Good, you heard the knock. Now decide. Open the door. Or I open it for you," Celia cried out. Everhard moved toward the drawing-room exit. Marceau caught his arm, not violently, just firmly. "Captain," Marceau said softly, "you are being guided." Everhard snarled. "Let go!" Marceau's voice remained calm. "You want to be the hero," he said. "That's why they chose you." Everhard froze, because it was true. Vivian's eyes sharpened at Marceau. "Let him go," she said. Marceau looked at her. "And you," he said gently, "want the door to remain closed because the person outside might reveal something you buried." Vivian's face went pale for half a second. Alistair stared at her. "Vivian." 3 knocks again. Then a letter slid under the front door, visible as it pushed into the hallway. Celia whispered, "A letter." Marceau nodded. "They want you to pick it up." Silence. Alistair suddenly stood. "I'm picking it up." Vivian snapped, "Alistair, no!" But Alistair moved into corridor. Everyone followed a few steps, carefully. Marceau stayed slightly behind, watching angles. Alistair bent and lifted the letter. He opened it. Inside, another single line, typed, "Key 13 opens the truth, but only one person can enter alone." Everhart spat. "Nonsense," Dent whispered. "Enter alone," Dr. Hale frowned. "They're dividing us," Marceau nodded. "Yes, classic tactic." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "And who will go?" The house waited, the clock ticked. Then Celia whispered, voice barely audible. "Me." Everyone turned. Celia looked terrified, but determined. I keep records," she said. "I know where cabinets are. I can—" Marceau watched her carefully. This wasn't courage. It was guilt, or fear of being exposed. Marceau asked gently, "Miss Pruitt, why do you want to go alone?" Celia's eyes filled with tears. "Because," she whispered, "I think I know what's inside." Silence, and the house, like a beast, seemed to lean in. Chapter 5. A hidden message in plain sight. They returned to the drawing room, but the room no longer felt safe. Key 13 sat on the table now like a verdict. Marceau picked it up and examined it in the lamp glow. Old brass, worn edges, used often. Someone had been opening something repeatedly. Vivian's voice was too calm. "That key belongs to a cabinet in the old music room." Alistair stared. "You knew?" Vivian smiled faintly. "Of course I knew. I live here." Everhart muttered. "You also control here." Dent swallowed hard. "We should not open secret cabinets at this hour." Marceau looked at him. "Mr. Dent," he said softly, "secret cabinets are exactly why this hour exists." He stood. "Let us go to the music room," he said. Dr. Hale whispered, "Together." Marceau nodded. "Together," he agreed. But as they moved to leave, the radio clicked again. "Not together." Silence. "Only one, or you lose one." The radio hum returned, and in that quiet hum, Marceau realized the truth. The voice wasn't only threatening, it was testing. Testing who would obey, and whoever obeyed first would reveal their role. The radio's hum returned like a heartbeat, not comforting, threatening, a steady reminder that something unseen was controlling the rhythm of the night. They stood in the corridor just outside the drawing room, 5 silhouettes under dim wall lamps. Shadows stretched thin across the carpet runner. Key 13 felt heavier now. It wasn't just a key, it was a decision. And in a house like Briarwick, decisions didn't open doors. They opened consequences. Alistair Rowan stared at the radio as though the voice might speak again. Vivian Rowan stood tall, calm in posture, but the tension in her jaw betrayed something. Captain Everhart's fists clenched and unclenched, anger trying to become action. Dr. Bernard Hale's eyes stayed alert, scanning the hallway like a man trained to notice collapse before it happens. Silas Dent hovered slightly behind, his briefcase clutched like a shield. Celia Pruitt stood closest to the corridor wall, looking like a frightened candle, struggling not to go out. Etienne Marceau was the only one who looked steady, because he wasn't reacting to the voice. He was listening to the pattern. He lifted his cane slightly, tapping the carpet once. Not to threaten, not to test strength, but to measure silence. Then he said softly, "The voice is right." Everyone turned. Everhart snapped, "Right? It's blackmail." Marceau didn't flinch. "It's not right morally," he clarified gently. "It's right strategically." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Meaning?" Marceau said. "Whoever controls this night wants you divided." He looked at Everhart. "And you are the kind of man who walks into traps if you feel challenged," Everhart snapped. "I don't—" Marceau cut him off calmly. "You do." Then he turned to Alistair. "And you," Marceau continued, "will sacrifice yourself to feel noble." Alistair's face tightened. "And you, madam," Marceau said, turning to Vivian, "will insist on control because control is the only thing you trust." Vivian's lips thinned. Marceau then looked at Celia. "And Miss Pruitt," he said softly, "looks like someone carrying a truth too heavy for her throat." Celia's eyes filled with tears instantly. Dr. Hale placed a comforting hand near her shoulder but didn't touch, as if even comfort might be used against them. Marceau took the key from Alistair's hand gently. He held it in lamplight, old brass, worn ridges, fingers smoothed by repetition, and then he said the sentence that changed the air. "This key has been used many times recently," Dent whispered. "How can you tell?" Marceau pointed at the shine. "The edges are warm polished," he said. "Freshly worn, not old age." Vivian's gaze flickered again. Recognition. Everhart hissed. "So someone's been opening that cabinet repeatedly." Marceau nodded. "And whoever is outside," he continued softly, "knows what's inside." Silence. Dr. Hale said quietly, "Then the cabinet is the real reason this is happening?" Marceau nodded. "Yes," he said. "And now," he added, "they want one of you to open it alone." Vivian's voice was sharp. "We won't obey." Marceau's gaze returned to her. "Madam," he said gently, "you already have." Vivian stiffened. "What?" Marceau's voice remained calm. "You already told us where the cabinet is," he said. Vivian's jaw clenched. Captain Everhart's eyes narrowed. "You knew the location instantly," he muttered. "How?" Vivian snapped. "Because I live here," Everhart replied bitterly, "and because you hide things here." Alistair's face tightened. "Vivian," he said slowly, "what's in that cabinet?" Vivian's eyes were cold. "Family matters," she replied. Marceau nodded slightly. "Family matters," he repeated. "Those are the darkest matters." Ted the walk to the music room. The music room was on the west wing, past a narrow corridor lined with framed paintings of long-dead Rowans who wore wealth like entitlement. As they walked, the house behaved strangely, not with obvious creaks or haunted drama. No, with politeness. The lamps were lit exactly where they should be. The carpets were perfectly placed. The air smelled faintly of lavender polish. It felt like the house wanted them calm. That, Marceau knew, was often the most dangerous kind of trap, a trap that doesn't frighten you, a trap that comforts you into lowering your guard. They reached the music room door. A brass plaque on the wooden panel read, "Music Room." Everhart reached for the handle. Marceau touched his wrist lightly. "Captain," Marceau said softly, "I want you to do something unusual." Everhart glared. "What?" Marceau replied. "Be quiet." Everhart scoffed, but he obeyed. Marceau leaned close to the music room door, head slightly turned, listening. Inside there was no movement, no footsteps, no breathing, just stillness. Marceau nodded once. He opened the door. The music room smelled like aged wood and forgotten melodies. A grand piano sat in the center, lid closed like a sleeping black animal. Sheet music lay stacked neatly on a stand. A small chandelier hung above, but only one bulb was lit, dim, intimate. At the far end of the room was a cabinet built into the wall, tall, dark oak, carved edges, and on its lock, a tiny engraved number, 13 Celia whispered, "That's it." Alistair swallowed. Vivian's face was calm again, but her eyes were not. Everhart muttered, "Open it." Dent whispered, "No." Marceau held up the key. Then he did something unexpected. He did not walk to the cabinet, he walked to the piano, and he tapped the piano lid gently with his cane, once, twice, a hollow sound. Then he moved to the wall near the cabinet and tapped again. The sound changed. Dr. Hale frowned. "What are you doing?" Marceau replied softly, "Listening to the house." Then he tapped beside the cabinet again. This time the sound was deeper, hollow, as though behind that wall there was space, a secret chamber. Vivian's breath caught slightly. Alistair's eyes widened. "A hidden room," he whispered. Marceau nodded. "Yes," he said. "And that he continued, is why they want you alone. Everhart snapped. Why alone? Marceau said quietly. So no one else sees what you see. He looked toward Celia. Or so only one person becomes guilty? Celia's face went white. I'm not, she whispered. Marceau turned to Alistair. Mr. Rowan, Marceau said, gently, do you trust anyone here? Alistair hesitated. Vivienne's eyes sharpened. Alistair finally whispered, I don't know. Marceau nodded. Then we proceed, he said, like a detective should. The one person only trap Everhart stepped forward again. I'll open it, he said. Vivienne snapped. No! Everhart turned sharply. Why? Afraid? Vivienne's voice was ice. Yes, she said. Silence. That honesty startled everyone. Even Marceau. Alistair stared. Vivienne, afraid of what? Vivienne's lips trembled just once, then steadied. Afraid, she said softly, of what the cabinet will say. Marceau watched her carefully. Now the real truth was close. The voice on the radio wasn't only a threat, it was a forced confession machine. Marceau turned to Dant. Mr. Dent, he said calmly, you are a solicitor, which means you understand this better than anyone. Dent swallowed. Understand what? Marceau replied. Records. He gestured to the cabinet. This cabinet is not for music, he said. It is for history, Dr. Hale whispered. What kind of history? Marceau answered softly. The kind that destroys families. Silence. Then the radio voice returned, faint but audible, as if the speaker existed in the room itself, not through the radio now, through the walls. One person, Celia flinched. Use the key. Alistair's hands trembled. Open the cabinet, Everhart muttered. How is it speaking here? Marceau whispered. Hidden speaker. Vivienne's eyes narrowed. She knew. Marceau looked at her. You installed a sound system in this wing, he said softly. Vivienne snapped. For parties, Marceau nodded. And it is being used against you, Celia whispered. Please, please don't make me go. Marceau's voice softened. No one will go alone, he said. And then he did something that broke the trap. He took the key and tossed it gently to Dr. Hale. The doctor caught it instinctively. The radio voice paused, because that wasn't planned. Marceau said, Doctor, open it. Dr. Hale blinked. Me? Marceau nodded. Yes, he said. You are the only one here who doesn't want anyone's money. Everhart muttered. That's not. Marceau raised a hand. Dr. Hale has no inheritance interest, Marceau said. No affair, no legal guilt. Vivienne's eyes sharpened. Everhart stiffened. Dent's face tightened. Alistair whispered, Open it, Doctor. Dr. Hale swallowed and stepped toward the cabinet. The key trembled slightly in his hand. He inserted it. The lock clicked, and the cabinet door opened. What was hidden inside were not jewels, not cash, not love letters. Inside were documents, stacks of folders tied with ribbon, photographs, a small leather-bound journal, and at the top, a sealed envelope with bold handwriting, for Alistair only. Alistair's breath caught. Vivienne stepped forward sharply. Marceau blocked her with his cane gently. No, he said. Vivienne hissed. That is private. Marceau replied softly. Not anymore. Dr. Hale lifted the envelope carefully and handed it to Alistair. Alistair's fingers shook as he broke the seal. He pulled out a single page. He read it, and the way his face changed was the kind of change you never forget, like a man watching his life split in half. Everhart whispered, What does it say? Alistair's lips trembled. Then he read aloud, voice cracked. If you are reading this, it means I have failed to survive the house, and it means you have finally been forced to face what Vivienne helped hide. Your brother, Julian Rowan, did not fall. He was pushed. Silence exploded. Celia screamed softly. Dent's briefcase slipped slightly from his grip. Dr. Hale's face went pale. Everhart's eyes widened. Vivienne's entire body stiffened. Alistair stared at Vivienne, shaking. You, he whispered. Vivienne whispered back, voice cold. Don't you dare! Alistair continued reading, louder now. The person who pushed me was not a stranger. It was someone inside this family circle, and Vivian knows who it was. Alistair's hands were trembling violently. He looked at his wife with hatred and heartbreak mixed into one unbearable expression. "You knew," he whispered. Vivian's eyes burned. "I knew what I needed to know," she hissed. Everhart snapped. "Vivian, who pushed him?" Vivian turned to him sharply. "And you," she whispered, "you should keep your mouth shut." Everhart froze, because now it was clear Vivian wasn't threatening him as a guest. She was threatening him as someone involved. Dent whispered, horrified, "My God!" Marceau leaned toward the documents. He pulled out a photograph carefully. It showed Julian. Rowan, smiling, standing near the staircase landing. Behind him, a shadow in the mirror. A man, tall shoulders, naval posture, Everhart's posture. Everhart stepped backward. "That's," he stammered. Marceau didn't accuse yet. He simply said softly, "Captain, you have the shoulders of a man who pushed someone." Everhart's voice shook. "I didn't," Vivian snapped. "Enough!" Marceau turned to Vivian calmly. "Madam," he said, "the cabinet did not only store documents." He lifted the journal. He opened it, and in Julian Rowan's handwriting, one sentence stood out. "If I die, blame the radio," Celia whispered. "The radio?" Marceau's eyes sharpened. This wasn't only tonight. This was a pattern, a signature. Someone had used the radio before. Someone had controlled fear before, and now they were doing it again. Marceau closed the journal and looked at Alistair. "Mr. Rowan," Marceau said gently, "this is no longer about the—" "Will!" Alistair's voice was broken. "What is it about then?" Marceau replied softly. "It is about how your brother was killed and how this house helped bury it." At the fatal detail hidden in plain sight, Marceau turned back to the cabinet. Inside, beneath the documents, was one more object, a small wooden box. He opened it. Inside was a tiny brass radio dial key, the kind used to adjust internal tuning and hidden switches. Dr. Hale whispered, "What is that?" Marceau held it up. "This," he said softly, "is proof." Vivian's face went pale again. Marceau continued, "This dial key is used to access hidden radio compartments, sound triggers, recording units." He paused. "It means the person controlling tonight's radio," he looked at Vivian and Everhart both, "has done it before," Celia whispered, trembling. "So Julian's death was staged too?" Marceau shook his head. "Not staged," he said. "Directed," Everhart snapped. "This is insane." Marceau looked at him calmly. "No," he said. "It's classic." He stepped closer to the cabinet and lifted another envelope. This one was stamped with Dent's law crest. Dent stiffened. Marceau opened it. Inside was a legal note. "In case of death, ensure front door remains sealed until morning." Dr. Hale's face tightened. Alistair stared. Dent whispered, "That was standard procedure." Marceau's voice became colder, still calm. "No," he said, "that is not standard." He looked at Dent. "That is an instruction." Dent's eyes filled with sweat. "Vivian asked me," Dent whispered. She said it would protect Alistair from shock." Marceau nodded. "Protect him," he repeated softly, "by trapping him." And suddenly Briarwick House made sense. It didn't refuse to sleep. It was trained, programmed, controlled, like the radio. Chapter 6. A witness who knows too much. Full. म्यूजिक रूम की हवा अब म्यूजिक वाली नहीं रही थी। अब वो हवा कन्फेशन वाली थी। कैबिनेट 13 खुला हुआ था और उसके अंदर से निकली हुई चीजें, फोल्डर्स, फोटोज, जर्नल, अब टेबल पर फैल चुकी थीं, जैसे कोई पुराना राज अपनी जगह से उठकर जमीन पे आ गया हो। एलिस्टर रोवन का चेहरा बिल्कुल खाली हो चुका था। ऐसा खाली चेहरा जो सिर्फ तब होता है जब आपको पता चले कि आप जिस शख्स के साथ सो रहे थे वो आपकी जिंदगी की सबसे बड़ी कहानी का नरेटर भी था और सेंसर भी। विवियन रोवन पूरी रात होस्टेस वाली पोस्चर में, अब भी सीधी खड़ी थी, मगर अब उसकी सीधापन में डिफेंस था, कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं। कैप्टन माइल्स एवरहार्ट का गुस्सा अब सिर्फ लाउड नहीं था, अब वो गुस्सा फियर से मिक्स हो चुका था। सिलस डेंट, जो हर चीज को लीगल बनाने का एक्सपर्ट था, अब पेपर्स के बीच एक छोटा सा इंसान बन गया था जिससे प्रूफ का वेट संभाला नहीं जा रहा। डॉक्टर बर्नार्ड हेल का फेस टाइट था। डॉक्टर की नजर हर चीज से ज्यादा ह्यूमन बॉडी पे होती है और उससे महसूस हो रहा था कि अब किसी का बॉडी कोलैप्स कर सकता है। सीलिया प्रूइट, सीलिया का तो हाल और बुरा था। वो कैबिनेट की तरफ देख रही थी, जैसे उसे पता हो कि जो कुछ निकला है वो सिर्फ जूलियन की डेथ का राज नहीं, उसकी अपनी जिंदगी का वर्डिक्ट भी है। एटियन मार्सो ने क्वाइटली जर्नल बैंड किया और सीलिया की तरफ देखा। मिस प्रूइट, मार्सो ने नरम आवाज में कहा, आप इस कैबिनेट से डर रही हैं। सीलिया's lips trembled. I I didn't, मार्सो ने सॉफ्टली ऐड किया, आप डर नहीं रही, आप गिल्टी हैं। सीलिया काम गई। विवियन ने तुरंत इंटरवीन किया। स्टॉप दिस, विवियन स्नैप्ड। शी इज जस्ट अ सेक्रेटरी। मार्सो ने विवियन को देखा, calm. Exactly, he said. That is why she knows everything. Silence. एलिस्टर का वॉइस क्रैक हुआ। सीलिया, डिड यू नो? सीलिया की आंखों से आंसू गिरने लगे। मिस्टर रोवन, शी विस्पर्ड। I tried to tell you, Everhart ने गुस्से से कहा, टेल हिम व्हाट? सीलिया ने अपनी पाल्म्स को टाइट क्लास्प किया, जैसे वो अपनी बॉडी को कंट्रोल कर रही हो। द नाइट जूलियन डाइड, सीलिया विस्पर्ड, आई वॉज हियर। डॉक्टर हेल की आईज नैरो हो गईं। यू वर अ सेक्रेटरी देन? सीलिया नॉडेड, क्राइंग। I was new, very new. Alistair's voice was hollow. What did you see? सीलिया ने अपनी आंखों को बैंड किया और जब खोला तो ऐसा लगा जैसे वो 3 साल पहले वापस चली गई हो। I heard a fight, she whispered. Vivian's voice cut in, cold. Enough! मार्सो ने एक जेंटल हैंड रेज किया विवियन को स्टॉप करने के लिए। Let her speak, Marceau said. Celia continued. I was filing papers in the small office near the staircase, she whispered. I heard Julian shouting, and then, she swallowed hard. Then I heard a soft radio sound. Silence. Alistair's eyes widened. Radio sound, Celia nodded. Not from the drawing room, from the corridor. Speakers, like tonight. Marceau's eyes sharpened. So it was true. This wasn't a new trick. It was a signature. Celia's voice shook. I heard Julian say, turn it off, stop it, Everhart snapped. He was drunk, Celia flinched. I heard him say, she continued, Vivian, and another voice. Vivian's eyes flashed. Liar, Marceau asked softly. Whose voice? Celia looked at Captain Everhart. Everhart's posture went rigid. Celia whispered, his. The room froze. Even the house seemed to stop breathing. Everhart barked. That's nonsense, Celia sobbed. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Alistair's face turned pale with rage. Miles! Everhart pointed at Celia. She's making it up because she's scared. Marceau's voice stayed calm. Miss Pruitt, he said gently, what did you see after the voices? Celia's lips trembled. I heard a thud, she whispered. And then silence, Dr. Hale whispered. A fall? Celia nodded. Then she added the detail that made Marceau's mind lock into certainty. And then I heard the front door chain. Alistair blinked. Front door chain? Celia nodded, eyes wide. Yes, like someone checked it. Like someone made sure the front door stayed locked, Dent whispered. The instruction, Marceau nodded, the note in Dent's envelope. Ensure front door remains sealed until morning. This was not procedure. This was containment. Marceau turned to Vivienne. Madam, he said softly, you sealed the house that night. Vivienne's face tightened. For grief, she snapped. Marceau replied. For control. Everhart's voice rose. You can't prove any of this. Marceau stepped closer to him, calm, not aggressive. Captain, Marceau said, you stood by the front door tonight too. Everhart's eyes widened, a small crack. Marceau continued. Same instinct, same habit. He paused. Because your job has always been to keep the house closed. Silence. Then the radio, somewhere in the walls, clicked softly, a faint hum, and the familiar calm voice returned, clearer than before, as if the house itself were speaking. Good! The witness is awake, Celia screamed softly. Dr. Hale stepped toward her instinctively. Marceau's eyes sharpened. The voice wasn't only threatening them, it was monitoring them, listening, reacting, like a person nearby. Alistair whispered, Where is he? Who is that? The voice continued, One witness is enough. Now open the front door. Everhart snapped, No! Vivian whispered, Don't you dare! The voice paused, then said something colder. If you do not open it, the witness will not survive dawn. Celia's knees buckled. Dr. Hale caught her. Alistair lunged forward. You leave her alone. Marceau raised a calm hand. Doctor, he said, take Celia to the drawing room. Sit her near the bugle. Fire. Keep her steady. Dr. Hale nodded and guided Celia out. Alistair tried to follow. Marceau stopped him gently. Mr. Rowan, Marceau said softly, if you chase fear, you become predictable. Alistair's eyes were wild. He's going to kill her, Marceau replied. He wants you to believe that, Vivienne hissed. Then what does he want? Marceau looked at the music room cabinet again, then at the radio dial key, then at the portraits in the corridor. And finally he said the truth. He wants the house's final secret, Dent whispered. Final secret? Marceau nodded. Yes, he said. He looked at Vivienne. Something even you didn't store in cabinet 13. Vivienne's face went pale. Everhard's voice shook. What secret? Marceau answered softly. The place where the original evidence of Julian's murder was hidden. Silence. Vivienne whispered, There is no original evidence. Marceau's eyes held hers. Madame, he said, gently, you've lied beautifully all night. He paused. Don't insult me with a simple lie now. Vivienne's lips trembled, and then quietly she said, It's in the attic. Alistair froze. What? Vivienne whispered again. In the attic, behind the west beam. I sealed it. Everhard snapped. Vivienne! Vivienne turned to him, eyes furious. Don't you dare pretend you didn't know! She hissed. Silence hit like a slap. Marceau nodded slowly. Now they had direction. Now the game had shifted. But the voice outside would not allow them to move freely, because the voice wanted one thing, the front door. Marceau looked toward the corridor. He spoke calmly, like a radio narrator, giving listeners the next beat. Now we understand the truth. He paused. The voice isn't outside for entry. He looked at them. It's outside and to make you open the door from inside. Chapter 7. The Missing Minute. The Fatal Detail. Full. ड्राइंग रूम में सीलिया को फायर के पास बिठाया गया। उसकी सांस रफ थी, आंखों में टीयर्स और बॉडी में वो शॉक जो सिर्फ तब होता है जब आपका पस्ट आपके सामने खड़ा हो जाए। डॉक्टर हेले ने उसका पल्स चेक किया। She is not physically ill, he whispered. Just terrified. Marceau ने head nod किया. Terror kills too, he murmured. Alistair ने अपनी fists band की. Attic, he whispered. The evidence is in the attic. Vivienne की eyes down थी पहली दफा, जैसे उसके पास अब words कम हो गए हों. एवरहार्ट ने गुस्से से रूम में पेश किया. This is all nonsense, he barked. We go upstairs, we find nothing, and we waste time, Dent whispered, or we find everything. Silence. Marceau ने रेडियो की तरफ देखा. रेडियो अब भी ऑन था. हम स्टेडी, मार्सो ने सॉफ्टली कहा. एटिक जाने से पहले हम एक चीज क्लियर करें. एवरहार्ट snapped. What? Marceau replied. The fatal detail. Alistair blinked. Fatal detail? Marceau nodded. Yes, he said. Tonight का सबसे important moment. Message, key, cabinet, voice, सब plan day. He paused. But plans का एक weak point होता है. He looked at the clock. Timing. Celia की weak voice आई. 1:13. Marceau nodded. Exactly, he said. Radio ने 1:13 a.m. को message play किया. He turned to Everhart. Captain, आपने कहा you heard a car sound on the lane. Everhart scoffed. Yes, Marceau asked calmly. Lane से porch तक किसी को आने में कितना time लगता है? Everhart hesitated. Depends, he muttered. Marceau's eyes narrowed. Depends on speed, he said. He pointed to the front windows. Briarwick Lane gate se porch tak, walking pace, come as come 2 minutes. He paused. But the knocks came almost instantly after the message. Silence. Dr. Hale whispered, meaning the person was already on the porch. Marceau nodded. Yes, he said. And if they were already on the porch, he paused. They weren't arriving from outside. Vivienne's face tightened. Alistair's breath caught. Dent whispered, They came from inside. Marceau nodded again. Yes. He looked at corridor. So the voice outside is a misdirection, Marceau said softly. The last guest concept, door knock, letter slip, Sab Theatre. Everhard snapped. Then who slipped the letter? Marceau replied calmly. Someone inside the house, during a missing minute. Celia whispered, trembling. Missing minute. Marceau nodded. He walked toward the hallway clock. He opened its glass door and examined the mechanism. Not dramatically, professionally. Then he noticed something small, a tiny scratch near the minute hand's pivot. Fresh. Someone had opened it recently. He asked gently, who wound this clock tonight? Vivian spoke quietly. I did. Silence. Everhard stared. Why would you? Vivian replied sharply. Because Alistair becomes anxious if… Clocks are wrong, Marceau nodded. And what time did you wind it? Vivian hesitated. Near 1, she whispered. Marceau asked, exactly what minute? Vivian's eyes flickered. I don't know. Marceau's tone stayed gentle. You do know, he said, because you're precise. Vivian swallowed. 1:09, she whispered. Marceau nodded slowly. Now the trap revealed itself. Between 1:09 and 1:13, Marceau said softly. Someone had 4 minutes. He paused. Enough time to place a letter, move in corridor and return. Dr. Hale whispered. So the fatal detail is the timing gap. Marceau nodded. Yes, he said, and that timing gap is not random. He turned to Everhard. It matches a Navy habit, he said quietly. Everhard stiffened. What habit? Marceau replied. A man used to watches and minutes, uses minutes like weapons. Everhard exploded. Stop it! He barked. Then he froze, because he had shouted it. The exact moment the radio hummed changed, as if the house responded to his voice. And then, tiny, almost inaudible, another click came from behind the wall near the corridor speaker. Marceau's head turned instantly. He walked calmly to the wall panel and placed his palm on it. He felt faint vibration. A wire, a speaker line, a hidden relay. He tapped near the wood seam, hollow sound. He pressed gently. The panel shifted slightly. A secret access. Dent gasped. There's a compartment? Marceau slid the panel open with careful fingers. Inside, a small recording unit, a tape spool, a trigger switch, and most importantly, a folded note. Marceau took the note. It had the same symbol, circle with a line through it, and one sentence typed, the house has 2 voices. One is recorded, one is real. Silence. Celia whispered, 2 voices? Marceau nodded slowly. Yes, he said, one voice is recordings triggered by timing. He looked at the corridor. And one voice is a living person near the house using the recordings as cover. Alistair's voice shook. So someone is actually outside. Marceau nodded. Yes, he said, but they are not trying to get in. He paused. They are trying to make someone go out. Vivienne whispered. Front door. Marceau nodded. And then he said the most important truth of Chapter 7. The fatal detail is not 1:13. He paused. It is the missing minute between 1:12 and 1:13. When someone inside placed the letter and ensured you believed it came from outside. He looked at Everhard. And the only person in this house trained to use minutes like that? Silence. Everhard's jaw clenched. Marceau didn't accuse loudly. He simply said softly, is you. Chapter 8. The Trap That Tightens. Quietly. Start. They moved upstairs like people walking inside a dream that had turned sharp. The staircase where Julian fell stood ahead like a silent witness. Alistair's hand brushed the banister instinctively, then pulled back as if the wood might burn him. Vivienne walked behind him, quiet now. Everhard followed last, eyes scanning corners. Marceau walked beside Dr. Hale. You believe Everhard pushed Julian? Dr. Hale whispered. Marceau's eyes stayed forward. I believe Everhard was present, he replied softly. Dr. Hale frowned. That's different. Marceau nodded. Yes, he said, because I suspect someone else gave the order. They reached the top landing. A draft moved down the corridor, cold, carrying the smell of dust and old wood. The attic door was at the far end, a narrow panel door, painted over many times, and on the wall beside it, a small speaker grill. Marceau paused. He looked at the speaker. Then he listened. No hum, no click, just silence. And then, very softly, an actual human voice, not recorded, not distorted. "Don't open it." Everyone froze. It came from beyond the attic door. Not outside, not porch, inside the house. A living person behind the attic. Alistair whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. The voice returned, quieter. "You'll regret it, like we did." Celia's sobbing from downstairs echoed faintly. Marceau stepped closer to the attic door. He placed his hand on the handle and felt it. The handle was warm, recently touched. Someone was up here, right now. Marceau turned his head slightly and spoke calmly. "We will open it." A pause, then the voice behind the door whispered, "Then one of you won't come down." Attic door के पास सबकी सांस रुक गई थी. वो voice, वो "Don't open it" recorded नहीं थी. बिल्कुल real, बिल्कुल human. और सबसे ज्यादा स्केरी बात, वो वॉइस अंदर से आ रही थी. ब्रायरविक हाउस के अंदर कोई था जो उनका वेट कर रहा था. विवियन की आंखों में पैनिक का पहला असली फ्लिकर आया. कैप्टन एवरहार्ट का चेहरा बिल्कुल टाइट हो गया, जैसे किसी सोल्जर को एनिमी का एग्जैक्ट लोकेशन मिल जाए और वो लोकेशन उसके अपने घर के अंदर हो. एलिस्टर रोवन की आंखें वाइड, बॉडी स्टिफ. "हु इज इट?" एलिस्टर ने विस्पर किया. नो आंसर. सिर्फ एक फेंट मूवमेंट की साउंड, जैसे कोई एटिक में आहिस्ता से स्टेप ले रहा हो पुराने बोर्ड्स के ऊपर. डॉक्टर हेले ने मर्सो की साइड पे स्लो ब्रेथ ली. "Someone is in there," he whispered. मर्सो का हाथ डोर हैंडल पे था. वो हैंडल वार्म था, रिसेंटली टच्ड. मर्सो ने हल्का सा हेड टिल्ट किया, जैसे रेडियो डिटेक्टिव अपने माइंड में ऑडियो मैप बना रहा हो. Then he said softly, loud enough for the attic voice, "Whoever you are, you have been controlling this night with recordings." A pause. Then the voice replied, almost amused, "You noticed?" Marceau's eyes narrowed. "You're not a ghost," Marceau continued calmly. "You're a person." Voice behind the door chuckled quietly. "A person who knows this house better than its owners," it said. Vivian hissed, "This is impossible." Marceau glanced at Vivian for half a second. "Madam," he said gently, "nothing is impossible in houses built on secrets." Then he looked back at the door. "I'm opening it," Marceau said. The voice behind whispered, "Then choose who dies with the truth." Silence. Everhart exploded, finally losing his patience. "Open it!" he barked. "Now!" Vivian turned sharply. "Miles, stop!" But Everhart had already stepped forward. His hands grabbed the handle over Marceau's hand. Marceau didn't fight him. He simply watched, because impatience reveals guilt. Everhart yanked. The attic door swung open. The attic smell hit them first. Dust, old wood, mothballs, cold air that hadn't seen sunlight in years. A single hanging bulb flickered overhead. The attic was narrower than expected. Beams and trunks, boxes labeled by decades, old furniture covered in sheets. And near the far wall, someone stood. A man, tall, clothed in a dark coat, his face half-shadowed under the bulb. He wasn't masked, but his eyes were cold, controlled, not afraid of them, as if he had been waiting. Alistair gasped softly. "You—" The man smiled faintly. "Good evening," he said. Celia's earlier words echoed in everyone's minds. "The witness will not survive dawn." Dr. Hale whispered, "Who are you?" The man stepped forward slightly, and the light fell more on his face. His age was mid-30s, perhaps. Not old, but his expression looked older than his skin, like someone who had lived too long with resentment. He looked at Marceau. "You must be Etienne Marceau," he said. Marceau nodded calmly. "And you," Marceau replied softly, "are not here for the will." The man's smile widened. "Correct," he said. "The will is a distraction." Vivian's voice cracked. "Then why?" The man turned to her, and for the first time, his smile vanished. "I'm here," he said coldly, "because you buried a murder under velvet curtains?" Everhart stepped forward, fists clenched. "Who are you?" he roared. The man looked at Everhart slowly. Then he said something that shook the attic air. "Ask Julian." Silence fell like a guillotine. Alistair's body went rigid. Vivian's lips trembled. Dent whispered, terrified, "No." Marceau's voice remained calm. "Your name," Marceau said. The man hesitated 1 second only. Then he answered, "Tobias Rowan." Alistair blinked hard. "Tobias," he whispered. Dr. Hale frowned. Rowan? Vivian stepped back half a step as if struck. Alistair's voice shook. He whispered. You're my cousin. Tobias nodded. Your uncle's son, he said. The one your family pretended didn't exist, Vivian whispered. You left England years ago. Tobias smiled coldly. No, he said. I was removed. Nay. The hidden beam Tobias walked to the far wall of the attic. He placed his palm on the wooden beam Vivian had described. This is where you hid it, he said softly. Alistair whispered. Hid what? Tobias looked back. The original evidence, he said. Then he pulled something out of his coat, an old iron tool. He slid it behind the beam panel, and with one sharp lever motion, creak, the beam panel shifted. A hidden compartment revealed itself. Inside, a cloth-wrapped bundle. Tobias pulled it out carefully and dropped it on the trunk. The cloth loosened. A few items slid out. 1, a broken watch, glass cracked. 2, a metal button with navy crest. 3, a small cassette tape in a tin case. 4, a folded blood-stained cloth strip. 5, and one final item, a letter, written in Julian Rowan's handwriting. Alistair's hands flew to his mouth. Vivian whispered, No. Everhart froze, staring at the navy button like a man looking at his own reflection. Dent's face went white. Dr. Hale whispered, This is real. Marceau's eyes stayed calm, sharp. Julian left proof, Marceau said softly. Tobias nodded. Julian recorded the truth, he said. He pointed at the cassette. That tape was meant to be played, Tobias said. But Vivian locked it away. Vivian snapped. Because it would destroy everything. Tobias turned toward her with venom. It was supposed to destroy you, he said. Alistair reached forward, trembling, picked up Julian's letter. He unfolded it. His eyes ran through the words. Then he read aloud, voice shaking. If I am gone, it wasn't the stairs. It was not a fall. It was a decision made in calm voices. Vivian watched. Captain Everhart acted, and Tobias tried to stop it. Silence. Tobias's jaw clenched. Julian was my friend, Tobias said. He told me he feared the house. Everhart exploded. This is madness, he roared. This tape could be anything. Marceau looked at Everhart calmly. Captain, he said. Gently, the button is yours. Everhart snapped. Buttons fall off coats. Marceau nodded. Not this one, Marceau said. This one is from a Navy ceremonial uniform. Everhart's breath quickened. Vivian hissed at Everhart. Control yourself. Everhart turned to her, furious. You told me it would be fine, he shouted. That sentence, too loud, too honest, struck everyone like lightning. Alistair stared at them both. You planned it, he whispered. Vivian's voice shook. Alistair, listen. Alistair's voice cracked with rage. You pushed my brother. Everhart barked. I didn't mean to. He stopped. He realized what he'd admitted. Dr. Hale whispered, My God! Dent whispered, Captain. Marceau's eyes narrowed slightly. Not satisfaction, sadness, because guilt always arrives like this, not with confession, with a slip. Tobias's plan, the real trap. Tobias stepped forward. Now you understand, he said quietly. He looked at Alistair. You invited Marceau here because your will was stolen. He smiled coldly. But I forced you to look at the murder, Alistair whispered. You started the broadcasts. Tobias nodded. I used your house system, he said, the same system Vivian used that night. Vivian hissed, You broke into my home. Tobias's eyes burned. You broke into Julian's life, he snapped. Silence, then Tobias said something that made Marceau's mind sharpen. I'm not here to hand you to police. Everhart blinked. What? Tobias smiled slowly. I'm here, Tobias said, to do what Julian never got the chance to do. Vivian whispered, terrified now. No. Dr. Hale stepped forward. Tobias, don't. Marceau's voice was calm but firm. Mr. Rowan, Marceau said, revenge is a fire that burns the hand holding it. Tobias looked at him. And justice? Tobias asked. Marceau replied, "Justice does not require you to become the killer." Tobias's eyes flickered. For a second, hesitation, then his gaze dropped to the attic floor, and Marceau saw it, a thin wire, a loop, a mechanism, a trap. Marceau stepped forward instantly. "Stop!" he said, but it was too late. Everhard moved. He took one step toward Tobias, and the floorboard clicked. A sharp metallic snap, a rope mechanism yanked, and suddenly, thud! A heavy trunk swung from above like a pendulum. Everhard tried to pull back, but the trunk struck him across the shoulder and chest, knocking him hard into the beam. He crashed onto the floor, gasping. Celia screamed from downstairs. Her scream echoed through the house. Vivian cried out, "Miles!" Dr. Hale rushed forward. Everhard coughed violently, clutching his ribs. Blood appeared at his lip. Dent shook, horrified. Alistair stared at Tobias. "You set a trap!" he shouted. Tobias's face twisted with pain. "It wasn't for him," Tobias whispered. Marceau's eyes locked. "It was for Vivian," he said quietly. Silence. Vivian's body went rigid. Tobias didn't deny. He whispered, "She was meant to walk first." The cold truth landed. Tobias wasn't only exposing murder, he was about to commit one. The classic radio moment sirens didn't arrive. Of course they didn't. Telephone line was cut, the house was sealed, the night belonged to the people inside it. Marceau stepped between Tobias and Vivienne. "Enough," Marceau said calmly. Tobias's eyes were wild. "You don't understand," he hissed. "They killed him in calm voices." Marceau nodded slowly. "I understand perfectly," he said, "and that is why you must not repeat the crime." Tobias's breathing was hard now. Vivienne whispered, "He's insane!" Marceau snapped, his calm voice suddenly sharp. "Quiet, madam." Vivienne froze. Marceau turned to Tobias. "You have your proof," Marceau said. "You have your tape. You have the letter." Tobias whispered, "Proof doesn't heal death," Marceau replied softly. "No." He paused. "But murder doesn't heal it either." Tobias stared at him, jaw trembling. Then Tobias slowly lowered his hands. Marceau nodded. "Good," he said. And then Tobias looked at Everhard on the floor. Captain Everhard, wounded, gasping, looked up at Tobias with hatred and fear. "You!" Everhard rasped. "You've ruined everything." Tobias smiled faintly, sadly. "No," he whispered. "You ruined it 3 years ago." The fatal detail that ends the night. Marceau looked at the cassette tape. He held it gently. "This is the end," he said. Alistair whispered. "Play it," Vivian screamed. "No," Dent whispered. "If that plays," Marceau nodded. "Yes," he said softly. "It ends careers." He paused. "It ends marriages." Vivian rushed forward, trying to grab the tape. Marceau moved his cane slightly, blocking her path. Vivienne froze, breathing hard. Marceau looked at her calmly. "Madam," he said, "this night was designed to force truth." Vivienne hissed, "Truth is cruel." Marceau replied, "So was your silence." He then turned toward Dent. "Mr. Dent," he said, "you will carry this tape to authorities." Dent stammered, "I—" Marceau's tone hardened gently. "You will," he said. Dent nodded weakly. Alistair stared at Vivian. "Did you really watch?" he whispered. Vivian's eyes filled with tears now, real tears, not stage. "I didn't push him," she whispered. Alistair replied, voice cracking. "No," he said, "but you let him fall." Silence. And that sentence became the verdict of Briarwick House. Chapter 9. The classic radio reveal. फुल एटिक का बल्ब अब भी फ्लिकर कर रहा था। वुडन बीम्स के बीच से कोल्ड ड्राफ्ट आ रहा था, जैसे ब्रायरविक हाउस खुद भी किसी कन्फेशन के बाद सांस ले रहा हो। कैप्टन एवरहार्ट जमीन पे पड़ा था, हाथ रिप्स पे, ब्रेथ शेकी, लिप्स पे ब्लड। डॉक्टर बर्नर्ड हेल उसके पास कनील किया हुआ था। "डोंट मूव," ही ऑर्डर्ड। "रिब फ्रैक्चर हो सकती है।" विवियन रोवन का फेस पेले था। अब उसकी एलिगेंस भी ब्रोकन लग रही थी। वो सिर्फ एक औरत नहीं लग रही थी, वो एक क्राइम लग रही थी। एलिस्टर रोवन अब भी जूलियन की लेटर को पकड़े हुआ था, जैसे वो पेपर नहीं, उसका भाई हो। सिलर्स डेंट कॉर्नर में खड़ा था, स्वेटिंग ब्रीफकेस ओपन, कैसेट टेप अब भी ट्रंक पे। टोबायस रोवन, वुंडेड, वाइल्ड बट नाउ क्वाइट। एटिक वॉल के पास खड़ा था, जैसे उसकी एंगर ने फाइनली थक के उसे छोड़ दिया हो। और एटियन मार्सो मार्सो बिल्कुल बीच में खड़ा था, calm voice steady, eyes sharp. He spoke softly. Enough! It wasn't a shout, it was a command. Everyone froze. Then Marceau said, हम अब guessing band करते हैं. He looked at Alistair. Mr. Rowan, Marceau said gently, आपको आज रात विल की चोरी ने यहाँ लाया. He paused. मगर आपको truth तक Tobias लेकर आया. Alistair whispered, he planned everything. Marceau nodded. Yes, he said. He planned the night. He looked at Tobias. But Tobias did not create the murder. Tobias's jaw tightened. Marceau turned toward Everhart lying on the floor. The murder, Marceau said softly, was done by hands trained to act quickly. He paused, and to obey silently. Vivian's breath caught. Alistair's eyes widened. Marceau said clearly, Captain Miles Everhart pushed Julian Rowan. Silence. The attic froze. Even the flickering bulb seemed to pause. Vivian whispered, No. Everhart coughed. His eyes burned. He tried to sit. Dr. Hale held him. Everhart hissed, You're wrong. Marceau didn't argue emotionally. He simply did what radio detectives always do. He laid out truth like paper on a table. Julian's watch was found in the hidden beam, Marceau said. It was cracked at the exact angle of impact. A navy uniform button was found beside it. And Celia heard your voice the night Julian died. Everhart's lips trembled. Marceau continued. You kept the house sealed that night. And tonight you stood at the door again. A habit doesn't repeat without guilt. Silence. Vivian stepped forward suddenly, voice trembling with rage. Stop this! Julian was unstable. Marceau snapped, sharp but controlled. Enough, madam! Vivian froze again. Marceau looked at her. And you, he said softly, didn't push Julian. Vivian exhaled, almost relief. Marceau continued. But you watched. That relief shattered. And you covered it. Vivian whispered. I was protecting Alistair. Marceau replied. You were protecting yourself. Dent whispered. Vivian asked me. Marceau turned to Dent. Yes, he said, you were. The cleaner. Dent flinched. Marceau's tone became colder, still calm. You cleaned paper. You cleaned timelines. You made it legal. Dent whispered. I didn't know he would die. Marceau replied. But you knew he was threatened. Silence. Alistair's voice broke. Miles, why? Everhart stared at the attic roof beam as if searching for a reason to exist. His voice came hoarse. Because Julian was going to destroy her. Vivian's face twisted. Everhart continued, weak but bitter. He found letters, proofs, names. He said he'd expose everything. Alistair whispered, Expose what? Everhart looked at him, then at Vivian, then back at Alistair, and finally he said, The affair. Vivian's eyes widened. Captain Everhart's words fell heavy. Vivian and I... He coughed. We were together. Alistair's face turned white. Dr. Hale closed his eyes briefly. Dent looked away. Tobias whispered, Disgusting. Marceau didn't react. He simply moved to the next layer. And Julian threatened to expose it, Marceau said. Everhart nodded faintly. Yes, he whispered. And that night, Marceau said, Vivienne called you to the staircase corridor. Vivienne tried to deny. Marceau raised a hand. Don't, he said gently. Vivienne stopped. Her eyes filled with tears. Marceau continued, And Julian confronted you both. Tobias whispered, And you pushed him? Everhart swallowed hard. I only grabbed him, Everhart rasped. He slipped. Marceau's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. People do not slip into death by accident when they are surrounded by calm voices. Everhart trembled. Dr. Hale whispered, Miles. Everhart's eyes filled, rage and shame together. I didn't mean to kill him, Everhart whispered. But he fell, and then he coughed violently. Vivian said, Lock the house. Vivian cried out, I panicked. Marceau replied softly. You didn't panic, madam. He paused. You calculated. Vivian collapsed into sobs. Alistair stepped backward, devastated. My brother, he whispered. "You killed my brother." Everhart closed his eyes, then whispered, "Yes." Silence, and that single word was the end of the house's lie. At the tape, Marceau picked up the cassette tape carefully. He turned to Tobias. "You came here to punish," Marceau said. Tobias's eyes were wet. "I came here to finish what he started." Marceau nodded. "But you stopped," he said. Tobias's jaw clenched. "Only because I didn't want to become them." Marceau's eyes softened slightly. "Good," he said. Then he looked at Alistair. "Mr. Rowan," Marceau said gently, "this tape exists because Julian was afraid." Alistair whispered, "Play it." Vivian screamed, "No!" Marceau held up a hand. "Not here," he said softly. He looked at Dent. "Mr. Dent," he said, "you will deliver this tape to the police as evidence." Dent nodded shakily. "Yes," he whispered. "Yes." Marceau then turned toward the attic door and called down the staircase, "Inspector Holloway." Silence, no reply. Dr. Hale whispered, "There is no inspector. Phones are cut." Marceau smiled faintly. "I know," he said. Then he reached into his coat and removed a small portable radio transmitter. Vivian blinked. "What?" Marceau replied calmly. "I came prepared for Briarwick House's habits." He twisted a knob. A static crackled, then a voice, real, clear, responded. "This is Constable Riggs, roadside unit." Alistair gasped. "Police!" Marceau nodded gently. "Yes," he said. "The police were never far." He paused. "They were simply denied entry." Marceau spoke into transmitter. "Send officers to Briarwick House. Murder confession. Evidence secured. 1 injured." The constable replied, "Understood. ETA 12 minutes." Vivian froze. Tobias exhaled. Alistair looked like he might collapse. Everhart whispered, "It's over." Marceau nodded. "Yes," he said. "It's over." Then he added, "But the house must hear it too." He looked at the attic speaker grill, and he spoke loudly, calmly, clearly, like a radio voice. "Briarwick House." The others stared. Marceau continued, "Your secret has ended." Silence, and then, from the corridor wall below, one last recorded hum clicked. The house tried to speak again. "Open the front door." Marceau walked to the attic speaker wire and pulled it out with one clean motion. The hum died instantly. Silence returned. Real silence. Not controlled, not staged. For the first time tonight, Briarwick House felt like a normal house again. Chapter 10. The house finally sleeps. Final. Full. Police arrived at 5:41 a.m., not like heroes, like reality. Boots on stone, coats damp, flashlights, radios. The front door finally opened, slowly, its chain unclipped, and when it opened, the house felt lighter, as if Briarwick House itself had been waiting for the outside world to enter and break the spell. Captain Everhart was taken downstairs carefully. Dr. Hale gave a brief medical note to the officers. Vivian Rowan was led out in silence. She didn't scream, she didn't collapse. She simply walked with a hollow face, like a woman leaving her own funeral. Silas Dent handed over the cassette tape and documents. His hands were shaking, his career was finished, but he was alive, and perhaps that was his punishment, to live. Tobias Rowan stood near the porch in dawn light. Alistair approached him slowly. For a moment it looked like anger would explode, but instead Alistair whispered, "Why didn't you come to me?" Tobias stared at him. "I did," he said quietly. "Years ago, you never listened." Alistair's eyes filled with tears. Tobias continued, "You were trained by this house to believe polished lies." Alistair swallowed. Tobias's voice softened. "Julian deserved one person who didn't forget him." Alistair whispered, "I didn't forget." Tobias looked away. "You did," he said. "You just forgot loudly." Silence. Then Tobias turned to leave. Alistair called after him, "Where will you go?" Tobias paused, then answered softly, "Somewhere the walls don't whisper." And he walked into the misty morning. Epilogue. 3 weeks later, Captain Miles Everhart was charged with manslaughter and conspiracy. Vivian Rowan was charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. Silas Dent was disbarred, his reputation destroyed. Celia Pruitt entered witness protection for a time. Her testimony became the key that closed the case. Dr. Bernard Hale returned to his practice, but never again treated quiet houses as safe places. Alistair Rowan rewrote his will again, this time not in anger, but in apology. He sold Briarwick House, not because he couldn't afford it, but because he couldn't breathe inside it anymore. The radio was removed first, and when it was carried out, wrapped in cloth like a corpse, it made no sound, no hum, no whisper, just silence. The kind of silence that isn't hiding anything. Final outro. And so, dear friends, the late-night mystery came to an end, not with screams, but with truth. In Briarwick House, the radio was never the villain. The villain was the silence between people, the calm choices and the quiet cover-ups. Because the dead don't disappear, man, they only wait until someone refuses to let the house sleep. If you enjoyed this classic radio Whodunit, subscribe to Hercule Mysteries for more calm vintage mysteries. And tell me in the comments, what was the fatal detail for you? The 1:13 a.m. message or the missing minute that revealed everything? Until next time, sleep peacefully. And remember, the quietest voice is often the most dangerous.